Okay, we should be set up on our end here.
Okay. Do you have something that you're going to be bringing today, Austin, that you guys would like to go ahead and present?
I mean, we have a couple ready. We were kind of hoping to see if you guys had any Articles 7 and 10 ready for us today.
We do have Article 10, but just based on volume, we would like to defer and have you guys go first, if that's all right.
We can. Ours aren't going to be super long. We kind of, I know some of them. We talked about Article 4, and
Yeah,
you guys expressed that as a priority, just like we did 7 and 10. Obviously, that's one where we've gone back and forth a lot. We're hoping to have that ready by next week, though. It's just we've
okay,
reoriented ourselves, so we're going to get those stuff done, but we are taking that as a priority. So.
okay.
Um, let me send over the two articles we have today. We've got Article 3 and Article 8, just nothing major. Um, I guess I don't have Shane's email. Let me see if it's in a directory.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Okay, those should be being sent to you now.
Got him.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay, you able to see that right there? So we'll
Yeah,
start with Article 3. Um, And Article 3, it's very simple. I mean, it's a very short article to start with. We've been going back and forth about this consultation and having the president involved. And we still think we're interested in having the president show up to one of our meetings, one of our consultations. We're happy, again, to add any extra stipulations that you want to. We took this text. This text is pretty much verbatim from the FSU graduate contract. So we know we're not extremely, out of the norm here and trying to establish these sort of things. So instead of, how we had it before, what we've done here is in at least one meeting in the fall and spring semesters, the president will attend one of them. The president and his team get to decide on when and where that is. Just whenever we request a consultation, as long as both parties are made aware at least a week in advance that this is the one where he's going to be attending. And then the meetings are not going to be used for the purpose of collective bargaining to discuss litigation, unless we agree explicitly otherwise. So even if the president's there or not, we agree that there are limitations, and we're not going to go against those limitations unless we both agree beforehand. And then for the request, we had put 90 days. You had put 30. We've accepted 30 as a change there. So not very complex, just kind of an attempt to mitigate some of your guys' concerns. I know it's been a couple months since we looked at this last. But yeah, very, very simple kind of changes there.
Austin, would you mind sharing the entirety, if you have access to it, of the FSU article?
Yeah, I can do that with you. It'll take me a couple minutes, but I can do that.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't need it right this second.
Yeah,
But that would be,
they
I
have.
would, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, they have a couple extra things in theirs, but the text in A and B those are pretty much verbatim from theirs, except for the being made aware at least 1 week in advance. That's text that we added on our end just to make sure both parties were not being surprised by attendance or anything like that. FSU's is more designed around, they only have one consultation each semester. So their wording is a little bit more nitpicky about, they only have these 2 meetings a year. Ours are more, upon request. So I tried to fix the language to make sure it still works within our guidelines as we currently have them.
All right. Thank you for that.
Are there any questions or anything on 3?
Any other questions from our team? All right, if you want to move on to 8.
Yeah, okay. Let's see if it will load down here. So Article 8, obviously we've been going back and forth a lot. I think we're really on really small things here. We're not dealing with any of the major things for paid healthcare. So there's a couple of changes here. The changes are going to be in blue. I know we have a lot of different colors. So the changes are
Austin,
going to
would
be
you
in
mind?
sort of
I'm sorry to interrupt. Would you mind blowing it up just a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So this first one here is when it comes to medical verification from a healthcare provider. Obviously, we don't have great access to mental health care in our current plans. It can be very expensive. It can be very timely. It can take a lot of time to get on get an appointment and get things set up. And so we don't think it's reasonable when we have an emergency to make GAs go through that process when it's a mental health emergency. So we just added an exception here that you don't need that sort of medical verification in the cases of extreme mental issues. And this is repeated down here for unpaid leave. It's just the exact same text. We've just put it in the same phrasing here. And then the other change we're going to have is still with bereavement. We're pretty happy with the language we've decided on. Our big issue here is, the number of days, which I think we discussed last time at length. And we're still interested in having it be 5 days for the death of an immediate family member within the country. And then when you have to travel internationally, raising that to 10 days. We think that's reasonable to make sure GAs can grieve appropriately, barring that we don't have many other options for getting that leave. And they're not stressed and they can focus on grieving instead of focusing on how long they have to leave. And those are those changes. So it's just those kind of those minor things as we're working through this document, but I think we're pretty close on everything else. So.
All right, questions from the bot team? All right, we will discuss both of those.
Yeah, and like I said, we're working on Article 4 because you stressed priority on that, and that should be available in the next week or so. And as we said, we wanted to focus on 7 and 10. You added 4. We're not putting those other articles on the, too far in the back burner. We are making sure that when we get to the point where we can present those, that we're going to be ready to continue to hit the ground running on those. So.
I appreciate that. I mean, 4 kind of like the other ones we've been discussing, not so much 3 and 8, which were 8 we've beat up pretty good and we've gone back and forth many, many times. 3 is not as complicated, although it's been passed back. And 4 we realize is pretty part and parcel to a lot of what we've been discussing. And we had identified Article 4 before the sessions even started as something that we were going to be really digging into and making substantive changes to, at least in some respects. Oh, I appreciate you guys wanting to be, sort of confident in what you've got before bringing it back so we can hopefully, because I think we already have quite a few changes in there that we have already agreed to, let alone the stuff that's still outstanding. So that's good. So with your indulgence, I'm going to make just a couple statements, and then rather than actually providing the language for 10, I'm going to just provide a chart because I'll send you the articles, but there's like basically 3 or 4 pieces of information that are of all the importance. And rather than showing it all in the article, I'll just do it in a chart. A couple of statements I want to make at the outset. The first one is I want to reiterate after discussion, we are not interested in doing just a partial ratification, whether it involves 10 or 10 and 7 or 10 and 7 and 4. Whatever we do on 10 is going to have to be part of the entirety of the full book negotiation. So, that's our position on that. We're not interested in doing just something as either an MOU or as a reopener ratification. We got to get all of it done. And the second thing is there was a comment made last time. I just want to make sure I get on the record to say, whether it was inadvertent or intentional, at one point, I believe a member of your team referred to GAs as being salaried employees. I just want to make it clear that UF's position is that GAs are not salaried employees as specifically referred to in an hourly limit in the contract. So again, I don't think there's a lot of disagreement about the fact that there's an hourly limit, but I just want to make sure that I make that statement.
Yeah, I believe that phrasing was in terms of workload. I understand for the cases of payment and how GAs are paid, we are hourly. And I
Right.
understand that. And I don't think we were trying to, at no point we're trying to imply that we are salaried in case.
Right.
It's the case when it comes to workload, and because of how we view workload and how GAs are overworked, that in many cases GAs view themselves as salaried because the hours themselves don't matter to the GAs. They have a work that they have to do per week. And so for them, their mindset is closer to salary than an hourly thing. And that's the point we were trying to get across there. And I apologize if it came off in a different direction, but that is the standpoint of the GAU, is that's the mindset of GAs and how we will approach that issue.
No, I mean, it's fine. I mean, no apology necessary. I guess, like I said, I understood it in context. I just feel it important that at least we get on the record too, that obviously we have a difference of opinion about that. I just, like I said, there's nothing in that. I'm not trying to pick a fight. I just want to make sure that you hear us say it. So if I'm able to share my screen, what we're going to be doing is actually bringing 3 parallel proposals to you today rather than just one. So I will send them all to you and your team, Austin, after the presentation.
Okay.
I'm not able to share my screen right now.
Yeah, give me just 1 second here and I can let you do it. Okay, you should be good to share it now.
All right, thank you. You able to see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we've attempted to do here, and look, we heard, I want you to know that we did hear the urgency that you presented with last time. I felt that came across as authentic and sincere. I want you to know that we are endeavored to continue to come back with proposals as repeatedly and regularly as possible to try to get this done. But to that end, we have attempted to bring you some choices today in terms of giving you an opportunity to indicate to us if one of these in particular is more aligned with the way you envision it or not. So you're going to notice here on the chart on new proposals A, B, and C, what we've attempted to do is demonstrate different approaches that we can take to how we would structure this. The first one focuses more on moving the minimum and keeping the merit raise the same as our previous proposal. The second one is an attempt to demonstrate movement on both. And then the last one is to show you that we would bring a proposal that would keep the previous proposal for the minimum stipend the same. Actually, if you notice, there's actually a little bit of a correction. My math was wrong. It was off by, I think it was off by $70 or so. I had not divided by 9 and 12 correctly. So you can see that's corrected. And then focusing more on the merit raise. So again, I know that when we talk about Article 10, these are the most critical components. I don't think we have any other changes in the article. And like I said, I will send them all over to you. Obviously, they're not intended to be taken subsequently, but they're all meant to be sort of independent of one another and parallel proposals for your consideration to show that, look, we heard that you want to do something quickly. We want to give you an opportunity to maybe prioritize one approach over another and indicate to us which one of these is more attractive to you. And like I said, we've attempted to move, as close as possible as we can based on the urgency. Also in the context of the fact that because the university's position is that we want to get this all done together, meaning all of the proposals to be done at once. We're going to try to move as far as we absolutely can towards what we feel like we can do or what we're willing to do in this round of negotiations on the finance. While, as you know, there's really not much else on our side still. It's basically this and the one article that you brought last time. So I don't know if you have questions. Like I said, I will send the actual verbiage over to you, but I felt it was more efficient and easier to present it sort of in this way.
Yeah, and I appreciate you putting it here verbatim. It makes it very easy to kind of compare these different discussions here. My first question is on the question of when I proposed last time, I included a new subparagraph 10.2, which automatically increases to the minimum stipend to match the J1 visa requirement.
Right.
Am I correct in understanding that under all three of these proposals that language is not present?
Yeah, the two portions that we are rejecting out of hand are going to be the guaranteed elevator or guaranteed increase to the merit raise every year, as well as the guaranteed increase um, every year for the minimum. I mean, at this point, we're interested in a 1-year deal, and we're not interested in terms of the reopener, and we're not interested in automatic increases on any component of Article 10 at this point.
Yeah, okay. I can understand your position there. I mean, I'm obviously our team's not we're disappointed with that sort of thing, and I think we made it very clear our reasoning behind that sort of those increases. I mean, it wouldn't be an increase based off of inflation or increase based off of percentage. It would be an increase based off of the J1 visa requirement that the University of Florida sets, and I'm sure there's conjunction with the federal government as well on who sets those values. That's not something I'm very extremely versed in, but I do know that those values differ by university. So I think the university has some hand in it. Um, and I mean, I appreciate you giving us multiple options here. And I think the biggest concern for me here is still connecting back to that visa, which I thought I had made explicitly clear was something we viewed as a minimum standard. I mean, for international GAs, they're required to report that much funding on an annual basis in order to even be able to be here. For this year, the J1 visa requirement is $27,192. And for the 12-month stipend, you have exceeded that for one of the proposals by $600, which is something, but it leaves our 9-month GAs out in the cold and not being able to afford that, which is why we had set our 9-month minimum to above that 27,000 value. And so, I mean, we're interested in having this discussion, continuing to go down this route, and I think we're making some solid progress here. And I appreciate that this is progress. This is, a discussion we're having. We're not kind of at a brick end here, but I mean, that's not a point that we're willing to kind of let go super easily, is that J1 visa requirement. I mean, and if you have any thoughts or discussions on why that value wasn't kind of implemented in here, I'm happy to have that discussion a little bit further and see where your thoughts are at that, as we have to go back and consider our next proposal as well.
I appreciate that opportunity to discuss it, Austin. I mean, I think I will tell you that I think we differ philosophically on whether or not it is the university's responsibility to completely fulfill and cover that financial expectation. I mean, I think it's that simple. I mean, we could go back and forth on the philosophy of it. I think you did a good job making your position explicitly clear. I think we understood it. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we took it to mean that you believe that you feel it is the university's responsibility to cover 100% of that financial expectation. And I think we just don't agree. And we don't believe that we should bear 100% of that financial responsibility. In addition to, and what's not on here, and we've had this discussion before, and I'm not attempting to use it as a cudgel as part of this conversation, but there's also considerable financial consideration with respect to the value of the tuition waiver that is also granted, which is disproportional based on the starting location of the student. Like I said, I don't bring that up to use it as a cudgel. I just bring it up to point out the fact that this is certainly not the only financial consideration that is being granted to GAs, specifically as we talk about international GAs. I realize that is not money, to your point, that can be used to offset and cover this requirement. But I do think that it is worthy of note that that is financial consideration that accrues to the GA.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I think, that's another point where we differ philosophically. And I mean, when it comes to the tuition waiver and things like that, we appreciate and we respect that we do get that tuition waiver. And it does come with a financial, equivalency. But that's not something we're going to take at face value a lot of the time, because we also know that, other full-time employees do get tuition waivers for up to 6 credits a semester. And so while GAs do get a higher value than that, and we are mandated to take those 9 credits for fall and spring and a different amount over the summer, that value differing between other GAs, between GAs and other employees is not significant enough to cover the salary difference, or the hourly difference between what GAs and other faculty are paid. When it comes to who's responsible for covering this financial burden placed by the J-1 visa, obviously we disagree philosophically. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But in our opinion, at a bare bones level, the University of Florida reports that international GAs need this value funding on a year, in which tuition waivers do not count as part of that funding to get that $27,192. When it comes to international GAs, if they are a 0.5 FTE, this is their full-time job. This is 100% of the job they can work. And so if them working the maximum amount they're allowed to does not meet that funding requirement that the University of Florida sets, the University of Florida is saying that you have to, be rich enough to be able to afford to come here and work for us and have the pleasure of working for us. And that's not something that we're gonna take at face value. That's not something we're gonna say, oh, that's fine. That's something we're going to continue to push for. And our next proposal is gonna, indicate that at the same point. That's not something that we're willing to force onto international GAs for any longer. We want them to be able to come to get an education, yes, to get that tuition waiver, of course, and be able to do their research, but also be paid and be respected as an individual and not have their international status be a detriment to how effective and how much they can work while they're here. So I don't know if anyone else on my team has any other opinions on that, but please feel free to say something for that.
You're good on my end. I think that was a pretty clear summation of what we've been talking about.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll
can
probably
I-
wait until I can see the proposals themselves.
I was gonna say, I think it's I want to say like weird and annoying, and I think it is disrespectful for an employer to tell their employees that the employer is not responsible to ensure that their employees can live on their wages. And I feel like that is basically what has been said in this conversation, that we cannot expect University of Florida to actually pay their GAs enough money to survive, to meet the requirements that they have to meet in order to be considered fully funded and fully live in Gainesville.
I would offer 3 things, Austin. The first thing, I would like to clarify the fact that there's a substantial difference between the tuition waivers that are available for members of GAU versus the employees. One of the most critical and financially impactful of those is the fact that employees under our program are not able to use those 6 credits for research dissertation credits. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but that is a significant difference. The second thing that I would offer is the fact that is that the requirement, the maximum working, as we've talked about before, the maximum working load is not a UF requirement. That is not something that we unilaterally set. And then the third thing that I would offer, sort of to Eva's point with respect, is the fact that based on that limitation, I appreciate how you characterized the way I said. I would say slightly differently, in that when we have a 9-month half-time person who is limited by the hours they can work, and they're already only working 3/4 of the year, and then they're working at a maximum number of hours is 20, is that equates to about 38% of what a 12-month full-time person would be. And I do think that it is a position that's not fundamentally unreasonable to say that to look at that amount or that equivalency of worked hours under the contract, that is not a construct. That is what the contract requires as a maximum in that situation. To draw an equal sign between that amount of maximum legal amount of work and to say that equivalent is whatever the prevailing living wage is for a full-time person to live all 12 months. Yes, I think we disagree. I disagree. Like I said, so I appreciated Eva's comment. I would just characterize it slightly differently.
I think we're gonna talk in circles if we keep going through this. I will give a final point here, which is, I mean, at the end of the day, all GAs have to, well, most GAs live in Gainesville and they all have to pay for rent or pay for housing. They have to pay for food. And those prices don't change depending on how many hours you work a week. International students are unfortunately, they are forced by the federal government to work a maximum of 20 hours a week. And I understand that that's not a UF limitation. That's something that's set by the federal government. But that's the reality we live in. And I don't think we're interested in playing numbers and saying, it's 38% of a working year, which, with respect, it is. But they still have to pay for rent for 12 months a year. They have to pay for travel and pay for food for 100% of the year. And so we want them to have a salary that is commensurate with them being able to live in the University of Florida area. And our next proposal is gonna reflect that. Obviously, this has only been half an hour. I think when it comes to sort of these things, I'd love to have the text on these proposals so we can discuss them during debrief. If your team is willing here, we still have an hour and a half. I'd love to go to debrief, and unless you have another proposal for us, go to debrief, and I can email you if we're getting close to maybe something we can counter with immediately this session, or if we're gonna have to push it to next week, if that works for you.
Yeah, I'll email you. I'll email them over right now, and then we'll go hang out in our caucus room, and then just shoot us an email and let us know one way or another.
Okay, that sounds
All right.
good.
Thanks.
Mhm.